Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for attending. My name is Councillor Helen Green. I'd like to welcome members of the public, colleagues and officers to this meeting. I'm chairing tonight's meeting, and to manage the business as efficiently as possible, I will invite people to speak one at a time to ensure their contributions are properly heard, and therefore do not speak unless you're invited to do so by me. The fire evacuation procedure. On hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately using the nearest exit. Do not, under any circumstances, use the lift. The assembly point is in the area in the Civic Office car park next to the roundabout, and you should not attempt to re-enter the building until you know it is safe to do so. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off. And members of the committee, visiting members and members of the public, please be aware that our planning committee meetings are webcast live, and so any contribution you make will be broadcast. Please remember to use your microphone when speaking and turn it off when you've finished. And this is important for the webcast because the camera will move to the next speaker. You need only press the black button once to turn it on and off. Thank you. So item number 1 is the membership. I have Councillor Quilty substituting for Councillor Brisky and Councillor Alexander substituting for Councillor Amron. Welcome. Item 2, communication and apologies. Members, we have a recorded vote, and so members representing the ward is the application is located in go first, and I go last to exercise an additional vote if it's required. Visiting members and community advocates, I want to thank you for being present. Please make sure you alert us when you are leaving and re-entering the building so that a note can be made for our records. Now, officers have tabled papers detailing additional information that have been received in relation to the application tonight, and they were circulated to members and made available to members of the public. Do all committee members have a copy? And I have no other apologies other than the ones I've just declared. Item 3, the declaration of interest. Do any members have an interest to declare in connection with this evening's agenda? Councillor Allen.
Well, it might not be, but the third application for Millbrook Green is a project that I have been involved with in terms of conversations with officers and getting the idea up and running, and I was on the CILIP panel that approved the SIL funding for the proposal, which is of course separate from the planning application. So I'm predisposed to be in favour of the project, but I in my judgment, don't think I'm predetermined, but I thought I'd flag it for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Richards.
Yes, so for the same item, so 5C 250987 full Millbrook open space, it's my intention to speak as a community advocate in favour of the application. Probably should have mentioned actually the last agenda item. Apologies, because there aren't any other councillors in that I'm aware of. So, but yeah, just wanted to let you know.
No problem. Thank you very much. So, item number 4 are the minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of September are circulated. Can they be approved? Thank you very much. So, item 5 are the planning applications. The papers for this meeting were published and provided to members of the committee 5 working days in advance, and a meeting was held to clarify the technical points. I appreciate some of you are substituting for others, so weren't able to go to that technical, but hopefully you have been able to read the applications in time for this evening's meeting. I proceed then on the basis that members are well informed of the applications before us and have read and received and read the reports. So for each application, it's custom and practice in Hertsmere for a member of the public to be permitted to speak against an application and one to speak in support of it. And where there are two speakers for an application, the person wishing to speak against speaks first. And councillors who are not members of the committee may also speak in their role as a community advocate on behalf of residents if they've registered to. And I note that Councillor Richards has done this. Members, may I remind you that any requests to amend, defer or refuse must make clear the material planning consideration. Thank you. So item 5A is 25/0766/FUL 8 to 9 Station Close, Potters Bar, and I invite Lisa Page to present the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. This is a full planning application at 8 to 9 Station Close in Potters Bar, and the application relates to the change of use from existing warehouse, use class B8, to the provision of a medical or health services, which is use class EE, together with the erection of a cycle store. Here's the location plan submitted with the application, the site outlined in red. The application relates to an existing building sited centrally within the employment area of Station Close. I've included this aerial photograph here just to show the site in slightly wider context. So we can see it lies within the complex of other commercial units within the employment area. The employment area is accessed via Station Close, accessed off Darks Lane. The rear of the site backs onto Sainsbury's car park and the railway line beyond. Nearest residential properties are to the west, which is in Clive Close, and then to the northeast in Manor Road. Here is a screenshot from the proposals map. So the site is a designated employment area. Relevant policies are CS8, CS10 and SADM5. So these policies set out that these areas are limited to uses including offices, industrial, warehousing and other B-class uses. Site plan here, the building is an existing two-storey industrial unit within use class B8. The application relates to the entirety of the building at ground floor and first floor, as we'll see on some floor plans shortly, so amounting to 1176 square metres. Full vehicle parking spaces would be retained to the front of the building, so 3 allocated spaces and 1 as a drop-off pick-up point only. There would be no disabled parking, but as set out in the committee report, many patients would be dropped off or arrive or be collected by taxi just due to the nature of the use. And it's understood that there's also 2 leased parking spaces in Station Road car park. Cycle storage and refuse provision is also shown. So looking at the ground floor plan here, the development seeks to deliver private healthcare, including diagnostics, consultation and minor treatments. And the floor plans, I'm not sure whether your eyesight's that good, but details a range of uses, so examination rooms, treatment spaces, physiotherapy and similar, together with reception and waiting room and office space. So that's the ground floor. The first floor, similar range of consultation and treatment rooms and staff facilities. Just quickly here is what they're proposing in terms of secure cycle storage, so cycle provision for 8 cycles. And some photographs here, so you can see that the building is of relatively recent construction. It's built to a high standard. Mix of brickwork at ground floor, which you can't quite see behind the hoarding, and cladding. So officers are content that the building itself does positively contribute to the employment area, and the scheme doesn't propose any external alterations to facilitate the change of use. Just another photograph here taking from the rear across the Sainsbury's car park, so again you can just see the quality of that building. I've included some slides here just to clarify the position in terms of use classes, because I think that was raised at technical meeting. So here we can see that policy CS10 relates to the employment sites, and it says that uses shall be limited to office, industrial, warehousing and other B-class uses. So prior to September 2020, there were 3 main B class uses. So B1, offices, research and development, light industrial, B2 covering general industrial, and B8 storage and distribution. So now only 2 of the B class uses remain, so that's B2 and B8, and B1 was deleted and subsumed into the new Class E that occurred in September 2020. So Class E is that commercial, business and service, and it includes quite a broad range of uses, as we'll see. So again, just a table here to sort of try to sort of demonstrate sort of how a lot of those uses have been subsumed within Class E. And in particular, on the right-hand side, if you're sort of scrolling down past the green, you get the first blue. So it talks about clinics, health centres. So historically, this sort of use would have fallen to be a D1 use. And now it's included within the Class E. So we can see it never fell to be one of these sort of B-type uses. So, and then just to clarify then what the use Class E does include. So A to G, so a range of uses, as you can see there. The application before us this evening relates to EE, so the medical or health services. So we can see that it falls outside of any of the B uses, as historically they were. So again, I know we've seen this map again, but really just to sort of demonstrate that the strong policy position in terms of the employment allocation. So the policy is clear that these uses will be limited to offices, industrial, warehousing and those B uses as historically they were. And this is to encourage economic growth and promote a competitive local economy. So officers consider that allowing the release of existing employment land with no compensatory designations may not allow the council to make appropriate level of provision for existing jobs and for future employment growth in the borough. And such an approach would lead to applications for employment development beyond existing designated employment areas being considered on a case-by-case basis. And this would result in sort of unplanned growth. And again, this is something we have seen with recent applications being brought to committee for new B8 uses within the Greenbelt. So that's sort of the policy basis really in terms of why we've got this strong designation and why applications are resisted that go against that strong policy context. So in summary, officers do not accept that the principle of development is acceptable and is not supported. So the development would be contrary to the development plan in terms of that designated employment area. It wouldn't fall to be a former B use. And it would undermine the function of the employment area. So whilst officers are content that the layout and design of the application, impact on residential amenity and access and highway matters are acceptable. In addition, landscape and ecology impacts, flood risk and drainage and refuse and waste are also acceptable. It wouldn't overcome the starting position in terms of being contrary to the development plan. So our recommendation this evening is that planning permission be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a speaker, so please listen for your name to come forward. Can I please have Dr. Sharap Akmal to speak for the application? Thank you. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
If you press the black button so you can be heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for letting me speak for this application. I'm here to ask you to support the application, to reject the recommendation to refuse this application, because we believe the proposed changes are very much in line with the area. Our proposal is medical private facility, which is diagnostics and the day surgery unit, which is an elective services, well planned and with limited implication to traffic. And location is sustainable, steps from Potters Bar station, and the application has been assessed by Highgate Highways, which has found no objection. As we listen, the refusal mainly concentrates on the CS8 and CS10 policies and around the protection of employment. So I would argue otherwise, because medical offices will create more employment than any warehouse facility. And the benchmark data comes from HCA Employment Density Guide, which is homes and community agency supported, backed by government, and it is commonly referenced by local authorities. And the last edition, 2015, consistently said the same thing. Warehouse supports 1 employee per 95 square metre, and the medical facilities sports employees, 1 employee per 12 to 15 square metre. By that definition, we will create at least 6 times more employment than if it was in current use as a warehouse. And also, on the application, we put minimum 7 to start up with the employee on site, and 10 to 12 remote working employee, because healthcare facilities are all digital, and IT, medical secretaries, finance, clinical governance, audit, they all work remotely. And this has been carefully designed not to have any implication on the traffic. So, and we know this model works well. We have a very similar setup in central London, very similar setup, and we currently employ 34 employees, 15 on site and 20 working remotely. And it's been rated very good by CQC, and we believe bringing the healthcare facility to Potters Bar site.
Thank you very much.
Sorry?
Thank you very much. You've had 3 minutes.
Oh, so sorry, really.
No,
I
thank you very much.
CS.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Officers, do you have any comments before I ask members?
Thank you. Just briefly, just coming back to some of the points. So I think sort of in terms of the sustainability point and the lack of objection from highways, that is accepted. Highway Authority are happy with the development subject to some good conditions if we were minded to approve and acknowledge it is an accessible location. However, that wouldn't overcome the in-principle objection with inappropriate use on a designated employment site. And then really just picking up some of the points in terms of the employment or staff numbers in particular. So I think the application sets out within the planning statement that it would employ up to 12 staff members. So acknowledge that that may well be higher than a BH use, which was this sort of former use. However, the development could well be offices, which would have a much higher staff numbers, which would be an appropriate use to have on that employment area. Thank you.
Sorry, you can't. I'm sorry, madam. You've had your 3. No, you've had no. Madam, please, madam. Thank you. I gave you your 3 minutes, and that's what you get. Sorry. Thank you. Right, members, do you have any questions for officers? Councillor Morris.
I'm sure you would have expected one from me anyway,
yes,
but
yes.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting application, this, and we debated or discussed with Councillor Gray at the technical meeting that, from my understanding, and I believe Councillor Gray knows the area probably somewhat better than I do, that it is a fairly run-down area. As some may know and realise, my background is in urban regeneration, and I'm struggling to understand why, with an application that is so close to public transport, when we have similar facilities at Centennial Park offering very similar services, and that the employment level is addressed in a more significant way than the alternative sources, why we're adopting the approach that we are. If we're looking to upgrade and improve a specific area, one would look to bring in facilities that would actually assist and aid that. So I'm actually struggling, and you've explained exceptionally well the rationale. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it, but you've explained the rationale for the recommendation. But for me, if I was looking to enhance an area, these are precisely the type of facilities I would be looking to bring into it. And I suspect Councillor Gray, who has an opposing view to me, may well give an alternative view. But I'd be appreciative if we could have a more detailed explanation as to how we've arrived at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take a few more questions and then the officers. Yeah. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Morris has covered an awful lot what I was going to say, particularly about the precedents already been set in Hertsmere in relation to Centennial Park and its diagnostic centres there. And I think I would also add there that I am aware that the National Health Service actually uses these type of outpatient facilities. For example, Bupa in Bushy, although it's a private hospital, is often used by the NHS services, and it does help the residents of the area quite a lot. So I'm a bit curious as to, is there any special circumstances relating to this particular facility, because it is medical, because it does help the local residents, it could help the local residents, and shouldn't we be, I know maybe on the black and white, that we're looking at it on a black and white table exercise, it might look as if it breaches the regulation. Shouldn't we have a bit of flexibility in this case?
Thank you. Councillor Sussman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm sure that Councillor Morris was reading my notes because they are very similar. But I would like to say that, again, I am struggling with this one because of the benefit of the employment. We are desperate for medical facilities and infrastructure within the borough, and this is all we hear on other applications. So I sort of struggle that we're not snapping this up. You know, there's facilities not only like this in Hertsmere, but in Hertfordshire. Hemel Hempstead is like a good example of where they've got very similar things, which are very easy. You know, I've taken my daughter to Hemel Hempstead because there aren't enough of these facilities here. Employment, I think there's such a benefit for that. I think it's close to Potters Bar Station, so it's easy to get to. Yeah, I just am struggling why we wouldn't be snapping something like this up, so I am inclined to support it.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Allen, then Councillor Gray, and then maybe officers can reply to your questions.
Chair, suggestion, your call, but would it be worth maybe officers answering those first three questions before I speak, so we don't lose track with everything?
We can do, yes, I'll ask
It's your
them.
call, but it's my suggestion.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Too many comments otherwise.
Thank you, councillors, for the points. I think ultimately my presentation sort of set out the policy position. So section, without getting too technical, section 38(6) of the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act states that development or planning applications must be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. So our starting position is contrary to the development plan. We have designated this as an employment area, and it's quite clear in terms of what uses shall be limited there. And I've set out sort of the relating to economic growth in terms of why that is to be retained for those uses. We have concerns that when you're taking a sporadic approach to allowing these change of uses, that it could result in other developments taking place in this unplanned way, hence why we've had those recent applications for some B8 uses in the Greenbelt, where they could be located on our employment areas, that we've gone through that process and designated these employment areas across the district. Noting what you're saying in terms of medical centres, the benefits that provides to the local population. The application hasn't been submitted with any sort of needs assessment in terms of what's required in Potters Bar or within the borough more generally. And equally, there hasn't been any assessment made in terms of the losses of employment use, why that could be allowed or why that use is no longer required. Also note the comments you're saying about the site, the wider station close is somewhat run down. I had another look through that last week and I had a look at all the units, and actually there are a few vacant units on the site, but overall I would say there's quite high occupancy rates. It looks quite a thriving station employment area in my mind, and in officers' opinion, it should be reserved for those specific uses that are clearly set out within the local plan. We don't feel that there's any material considerations that would outweigh going against our development plan.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Well, this is an interesting and unusual situation. I've not seen an application with this position in the time I've been on this committee. And clearly, it is quite difficult, I think, because clearly policies have to be respected, we have to follow them, or it all falls apart. However, there have been applications where the recommendation has been for approval, which have sort of skirted with breaching policies. Parking capacity, for example, we've been told, well, it doesn't matter that much. So it is a tricky one, because I think we have to respect the integrity of the policies. But from a common sense sort of lay perspective, it does seem a little bit strange because what's proposed would create employment. So it's not being proposed that it would be turned into something that wouldn't hire anybody. So I suppose in a way we have to consider the impact of bending the policy to the point of fracture with this. Against the fact that it would create jobs of some kind. But my question is, I confess I don't know this area very well, but from the photos it looks as if this building is boarded up. So can I ask, how many people does this site employ at the moment, and how long has it been, if it is closed, how long has passed since it last employed anyone?
The site is currently vacant, so it was a rebuild, so I couldn't give you the information in terms of numbers of employees prior to the rebuilding.
Because I suppose what might weigh on our minds is we could accept the recommendation refusal and it could stay empty, employing no one for an indefinite period of time, which does make it tricky. However, I totally take the point about the integrity of the policies.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm glad Councillor Morris is sitting down because he might fall off his seat otherwise if he was standing. But we do agree on quite a lot of this, and I've got nothing against the aims of what this development is hoping to do. I do want to kind of ask a few questions around some of the comments made by my colleagues, Councillor Quilty and Councillor Sussman, who seems to be suggesting that this has got links to the NHS and it will probably take the burden off the NHS. I've seen nothing in our papers that say there's a link with the NHS or anything like that. Shush. Okay. So I'd like that clarified to see whether it is going to sit purely as a private medical practice or not. The area is not the best, I will be totally honest with you. And I didn't realise this was a rebuild, a kind of knockdown and a rebuild of what was originally on the site. I'm just a little concerned that maybe cart before the horse and have built something without actually waiting for the planning permission to actually have it on site, the medical centre on the site. I am also a little bit concerned about the parking issue. Many a time in this committee we've heard probably most detailed conversations around parking, and to have a medical facility without a single disabled access point is concerning, with only 3 parking spaces which will probably be taken up by the 9 to 12 staff that are working on site. And equally, if we can go back to the pictures that you showed of the front of the buildings and kind of the area of Station Close, I don't know how all these people who are going for physiotherapy are going to actually walk to the centre, because there is no pavements there. They are literally roads that lead up onto ramps straight into the unit. So there's not even a safe walking route to get to the site without the pavements being there. So The issue for me isn't the fact that this would be a benefit to Potter's Bar. It most certainly would. If it's got links to the NHS and can take some of the pressure off the NHS, that's even a better use. But it's just the wrong place, I'm afraid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. And I believe the other councillors said that places like this are sometimes used by the NHS. They didn't say it would be.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else they want to ask? Councillor Richards and then Councillor Lambert. Thank you.
I'm not necessarily sure it's a question, so apologies. But the location is relatively sustainable in terms of the close proximity to the station. But if this is to be used for physiotherapy, I don't know how many people would be necessarily coming by train. Less mobile, would probably still rely on cars, and then it's a question of whether this is for, likely to be Hertsmere residents that would use the site, or not an easy question to answer, and probably not necessarily a material consideration, but just something that is swirling in my head when I consider this, because it is a very tricky one.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some concerns about this. My initial reaction when I was reading the papers was perhaps we're being a little bit too rigid about the policy, and policy should perhaps be more a guideline, and special circumstances could override it in some cases. I'm quite interested in 2 points. One, you talked about the estate there has quite a high occupancy rate. I would really like that quantified a bit more, because it would help me to form an idea whether or not this is an industrial estate that's going into decline and needs to find alternative tenants, or whether in fact there is high demand for these units. It sort of looks a bit as if they've had to refurbish it in order to re-let it, and so I just wonder whether we're just being a bit harsh on the policy. And that leads to the other question, because we are recommending refusal, but I see that we've got 3 parking space plus 1 disabled outside the building. There are 9 staff members probably at any one time, and we've got, however many, some in station car park, 2 spaces, and I think in it 5 and possibly an optional 4 in the Sainsbury car parking. I think we need to be really sure that there is adequate car parking around there if it is going to be used. So my doubts still are too rigid policy. Car park would have to be very sure of that, and I really would like some definition about high occupancy rate, because the state of this estate would dictate to a large extent whether or not I would feel that we ought to be a bit more flexible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the questions and the points. Just trying to pick up on some of them. What I would say firstly is that the application is sought by for private healthcare. So from the submission, it would appear that there are no links to the NHS for this particular application. Noted in terms of the comments about the highway and parking provision, and that's sort of detailed within the committee report in terms of sort of travel plans and other associated conditions we could impose to sort of address those issues. I think really sort of for us as officers, in terms of our recommendation to members this evening, is sort of really just coming back to policy SC 8 and 10, which is really about protecting the supply of employment land. So there are this is a designated employment area. Across the district or across the borough, there are other locally significant employment sites where the policy does allow much more flexibility in terms of some mixed uses. But on these designated strategic employment sites, the policy is quite clear in terms of protecting that land for the supply of employment uses. In terms of any sort of qualitative assessment or quantitative assessment in terms of vacancies, I can't give that to you this evening. As I said, I did have a look round, and I would say there was less than a handful that would be vacant, but I couldn't sort of categorically state that to you today. I definitely don't get a sense that this employment site is in decline. This is a new building, as you can see, compared to sort of some of the adjacent uses. So there's a very mix across the employment area. So you've got, as you can just see there, MOT, there's some print makers, there's some insurance, other offices. So there is a mixed bag across the site. This building is new, newly erected. The application hasn't been submitted with any marketing report as to sort of say it's been marketing for office or industrial or any other B uses, and that, you know, there was no uptake for it. So there's been no evidence to suggest that this building would be vacant for a long period of time. But it's really about protecting our designated employment areas where the policy doesn't allow that flexibility in comparison to some of the more locally significant employment areas where policy does allow for a bit more flex.
Councillor Sussman and then Councillor Allen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just quickly, because I know I spoke before. Councillor Gray must have misheard me because I didn't mention the NHS. I'm sure he can watch this back later, just to clarify that. Second point is... That's the strangest cough I've ever heard, and I think that's very disrespectful.
Apologies, if we can let each other speak.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's a blood test centre not far from there, I think in the same development, which would have a lot of comings and goings as well. I think given all the housing that we are constructing on our grey belt, we need all the medical facilities, both private and NHS, that we can get at the moment. Looking at the other employment uses that were listed, I think that we're going to be in the same situation, and in fact, if people are complaining about the parking, if we're going to look at sites that are going to employ even more people, then that's only going to become more of a struggle. I would like to see pavements or some sort of pathway put in so that people can walk and feel safe, and you can have a health MOT and car MOT at the same time, which I think could be quite positive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allen, I think.
Yes, this is a difficult one, surprisingly thorny. We've had some talk of parking and highways, but that's not the reason officers have recommended approval. Those issues don't seem to be on the table. And so it seems to come down to this, which is the position that by approving this, we'd open the floodgates to other applications. I think the tricky bit is that, as I mentioned before, it would generate some employment. And from a kind of wider economic view, employment is employment. And it's not less good for the local economy if someone is a doctor rather than an administrator or doing data entry. It's all economic activity. But I have to go back to the point, which is the one I'm wrestling with, which is that if you just breach a policy willy-nilly, then everything else can quite easily collapse. But my question to officers is this. If we were, just in a hypothetical sense, to not accept your recommendation and to approve this, would future applicants for other schemes where they want to change the class within a designated area, could they cite this as a material reason for approval? Because we're always told that every application's on its own merits and precedents don't really matter. So were we to approve this, could another applicant say, well, because of that, we can do this?
Thank you. I mean, ultimately, yes, I would be surprised if other applicants, if this was approved, wouldn't cite this to say that this was allowed within a designated employment area, so it could then be lost to other uses. Obviously, each case is on its own merits, but if we're looking at specific designated employment areas and we've approved a loss, we've sort of, I know you sort of said open the floodgates, but I think it does sort of, it would have an argument, I guess, for other applicants to come forward to say, you know, we weren't concerned about it here, so why would we want to retain other buildings, especially other buildings that perhaps, you know, are in poorer quality, may well be vacant.
But would it be a material factor? Applicants say all kinds of things to get it over the line, but would officers say that's a material factor? What happened with this?
It would be a material consideration, yes, in future applications.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Rosehill, Councillor Morris, and then Councillor Quilty, and then I think, and then the officer to my right would like to make a comment. So, Councillor Rosehill, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Since there are a couple of speakers after me, I won't presume to move to a vote, but I think from my point of view, it's where CS or core strategy comes into common sense, and if there's an area that's going to be regenerated, is going to, you've got an enormous Sainsbury's car park right next to a train station. I'm not particularly worried about certain things like that. That's going to regenerate the area and it's going to be useful for the residents who live there. And so I've got absolutely no problems with this whatsoever.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you. I'm finding some of the rationale that is being presented to us somewhat challenging. We are all aware that with every single planning application that we ever discuss, we are always told that no single application sets a precedent for another. And yet we're hearing the argument that this could set a precedent on the basis that every application stands on its own merit. I'm struggling to understand that particular argument. The other point that was made earlier related to the local plan, which actually is currently non-existent because we don't have a local plan. So is the local plan the one that has expired or the one that we are proposing to bring in? So I'm actually struggling with that particular argument. However, I really am finding it very difficult to find a rationale for refusal, particularly, and what is unusual is that we're having a discussion here about overturning an option to refuse, which is most unusual. And in fact, I can only recall one other in recent years, which was Caldecott Farm, which I felt was an appropriate application. So at the appropriate time, unless somebody else wants to move it, I would be happy to move for approval of this application, but will continue to listen to others before I make my final decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I also had now Councillor Quilty. Can I just remind you, members, and remind me as well, that if we wish to approve this application, which is contrary to what we're being advised against, then we will need a material planning consideration for that. But I know you know that. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you. And do you know, this is one of the reasons why I didn't put my name forward to go on planning again. But the last time that we sort of discussed, or the council discussed, and put forward people who wanted to go on planning, because these are the sort of things that sort of really play at your heartstrings. Your head is saying one, the heart is saying the other thing. And how many times I used to say that over the 25 years I've been involved in planning here. You know, I think it's a lot of you have heard it before, but it's very true. The reality is, I suppose, the way I'm looking at it is, should there be special circumstances to give us, as a planning committee, wriggle room to allow something that benefits the local residents and our community? Well, I think there should be. And so therefore, I'm coming down, after listening to the whole thing, to being not, when the vote comes, I will potentially won't be voting to support the officer's recommendation. But can I suggest that we might want to, if there is going to be an argument over what policies this has breached and all that side of it, can I suggest that this application be deferred for legal and officer's advice on the reasons for the overturn? You might want to think about that one.
Yes, thank you. But as I said, I completely see where you're coming from, but we do need to have a planning consideration if we wish to defer it. I will have the officer wishes to say something, and then I think Councillor Gray, you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to pull a few of the strands of the comments together. One thing to remind members, it was mentioned, policy CS8, and just to remind you what it's really trying to do. And what it tries to do is to protect the supply of industrial land, which we know has been in high demand. So for remind members, or those that were on the committee on the 18th, members resolved there to approve the Lismarine site, which was several thousand square metres of B8 floor space in the green belt. It was agreed that there was a high demand for such floor space in the borough. Similarly, 3 or 4 months ago, Elton Way application was approved again, several thousand square metres of B8 floor space in the green belt. Again, in approving that, it was agreed that there is a high demand for it, hence it was approved. Now here we have a protected employment site, use class B8, and we're trying to protect that as per policy C8. I just think it's more like members to think about how those two arguments go, whether they clash, i.e. we're approving something in Greenbelt, several thousand square metres of B8 space in the Greenbelt, because there is a high demand for it, it's agreed, and yet we've got a ready-made B8 site in a protected employment area, and we want to protect it, we want to refuse the application. There is little or no evidence submitted with this that suggests that this B8 use isn't viable, isn't needed. For example, there's no marketing evidence to suggest that to us. Going back to the argument or question earlier about, if we refuse this, will other developers, come back and cite this? Yes, each site application is assessed on its own merits, but if we readily approve an application with little evidence to suggest that the use cannot be viable or is not viable, there's no marketing evidence, we can't then turn around in future and say, oh, you have to give us that marketing evidence, but whereas we didn't even ask for it or have it on this particular site. So yes, each case is assessed on its own merits, but the way we go about it, the way we make a decision and the evidence we ask for can be used, as an example in future. So that's where we have to be very careful. There were also comments about Centennial Park earlier at the beginning of the discussion. And my understanding is that there are research and development uses on that site, and some of those do have ancillary or complementary medical facilities with them, but the fundamental use is research and development, which is a B-class use. So that industrial use remains. I think if I just take back as well, there was a comment at PTM a couple of weeks ago regarding the waterfront, and yes, there are, again, some sort of medical uses in there, but that is not a protected employment site. So again, it's a different policy background. That's all I'd like to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a number of, lots of other people want to say something, but first it's Councillor Gray wanted to make a comment.
You. It's just 2 points for the officer that I want clearing up, because Councillor Morris started this meeting by talking about regeneration of the site, but my understanding is, living in Potter's Bar, it's a very vibrant industrial zone. There is a lot of business taking place there. It's not on its last legs, and it certainly isn't in need of regeneration. It's vibrant and a well-used industrial estate. And also the second point is on benefits. That there's very little. I don't disagree that there probably will be benefits, but there's very little in our papers that actually says what kind of benefits are going to be given to the public from this venture going here. There's a nod to some rooms for physiotherapy and minor day treatments, but unless have we seen sight of the kind of services and operations of this site? Do we know what will be conducted? Do we know if it will be a benefit or not? Is the point I'm trying to get to, which is not clear, because I think it's quite rash to say that it will be of a great benefit to the people of Pollock Bar and Hertsmere with actually out knowing what they're actually doing in the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rosehill, want to say something else?
Well, it looks like there's more questions. I was going to move something, so I will stay quiet.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Alexander actually wanted to say something. And Councillor
Yes, thank you,
Richards.
Chair. So my point is a bit similar to Councillor Gray's, actually. I wanted clarification as to whether there is, in fact, high demand for warehouses or whatever industrial uses of this property. So if we are trying to preserve that use, I just want to make sure that we aren't sort of just flogging a dead horse, as it were, and that we are preserving something that is worth preserving and that is vibrant. If it's just going to lie there unused, then I think there's a very strong argument then to build this practice.
Councillor Richards?
Thank you, Chair. Matt, your explanation was incredibly helpful, and I think has distilled my view that the policy, whilst is never clear-cut when you look at one application at a time, and there are indeed merits in this application, I'm minded to also compare this to the Lismarine situation the other week, and I'm also mindful this isn't a regeneration. This is, you know, it's just a change of use. It's you know, we can't use sort of. There is no marketing material on which to base any decision. So I'm minded to agree with officers on this. One thing, very briefly, I would say, though, should colleagues be minded to propose going against officer recommendations and indeed come up with a material reason for that, I would like to sort of go back to 7.3.3, whereby I strongly would suggest a condition to look at the from an environmental perspective, that we ensure it's as environmentally friendly as possible. Should somebody be willing to put that recommendation forward, it should be conditioned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Allen.
I hate this one. It's really difficult.
We will have to at some point vote on it, but there you are. Yes, do go on.
My question is, quite often at this point of proceedings, we hear quite a bit about pre-app discussions. The applicant has extensive chats with officers, and something which maybe wasn't quite working is smoothed out so it does work. But presumably in the process for this one, officers would have told the applicant quite early on, this is a no-go because of this policy, but they applied anyway. It might not be disclosable, but can you tell us anything about the pre-app process in that way?
Yeah, certainly. So in this case, there hasn't been any formal pre-application discussions in advance of the application being submitted. Officers have been in discussions with the applicants throughout the course of the application in terms of submitting some extra highway information. But yes, the applicants are aware that we were minded to recommend refusal of the application. Also, just maybe picking up on some points about vacancy rates, and as you note, there hasn't been any marketing of the of this particular unit to see what interest there would be for genuine sort of appropriate uses, employment uses, but equally there's not been any other evidence across the employment area of Station Close to demonstrate what the vacancy rates are or anything such as that. Also, just to the north here, the building has only just recently been last year granted a change of use to a sort of former B1 use. So there's definitely interest within Station Close for new businesses expanding and relocating. So it's definitely not an area that's sort of in decline. And as you sort of said, it's not a regeneration project because the existing building's already there, as we can see. It does positively contribute. So it's really just relating to the change of use.
Thank you. So, Councillor Morris, I believe you were minded to make a suggestion.
Thank you very much. It's interesting how these discussions seem to almost go in circles, because I recall the technical meeting where we were told this is a sort of fairly rundown and inappropriate area, but the discussions tonight are maybe slightly different. But to get to the point that you're asking me to get to, which is to move a recommendation for approval, it is clear to me from what officers have told us that the level of employment that this will generate exceeds that will come from the alternative uses that are being proposed. And on that basis alone, I'm prepared to propose a recommendation to approve on the basis of an increase in the employment levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rosehill. So you are proposing to reject the officer's recommendation. I'm just checking. One moment.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify one point. I think you referred to the local plan before. That was incorrect. It's the policy we were talking about. So I just want to clarify that the report is referring to our policy, not the local plan, for the reasons.
The officer made reference to the local plan in her dialogue with us, which is why I brought the issue up. So whilst I accept what you said, the officer actually made the reference to the local plan, but I'm quite happy to go with either option that you propose.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify in the report it refers. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'm just checking and see if officers wish to make any comment. So we will go to the vote. We're just to make clear that we are...
Sorry, could you repeat what the grounds...
Refusing the officer's recommendation.
And if you can clarify what the grounds are.
And what are the grounds for that, please?
On the grounds that the employment this would bring to the area is significantly above the alternatives that have been highlighted by officers. I think that is sufficient for the moment.
I will just check with, no disrespect to you, Councillor Morris, but I will check whether or not that is actually a planning consideration or not. One moment.
Yes, we've just discussed it with planning officers, and because we can't assess what the employment is, that isn't a material planning consideration until it's been reviewed. If that is something members want to look at, we can...
Councillor Gray, and then Councillor Rosehill has comment as well.
Thank you. I'm struggling with this a little bit because actually it's never been marketed for any other use apart from this, so we actually don't know what the employment figures could be in that building. If it was turned into an office, for example, with 60, 70, 80 desks in there, well, obviously the employment statistics are going to be much higher. The fact that it's never been marketed and has come straight in as a medical diagnostic treatment centre development, we can't actually have those figures. So I don't understand what we're voting on, sorry.
No, it's fine. I personally agree that it's hard to make the decision. It will create more employment than not if you don't know what the other
one person in there would improve it because it's empty at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Rosehill, thank you.
It reminds me of something about the Lidl that was done in Elstree, Elstree Way. I think that had we had a similar issue, which was about classification. But I don't think this can be denied as an employment use. So I think ultimately that is the material consideration, that this is safeguarding it for employment use because it is being used for employment.
But it's
Madam Chairman, can I
We're not-
help here? I might be able to help you here.
we're not-
Shouldn't you be moving from the chair the officer's recommendation, and then we can vote on it? If it fails, then we can go back to this discussion. If it passes, that's it. The meeting, we moved on.
When a recommendation is put forward, we do need material planning reasons for those reasons.
I think you've got a material planning reason.
Quite
We
totally
don't agree
hasn't.
with the officers.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, fair enough. We are going to vote then on whether or not we wish to accept the officer's recommendation, and if we don't,
You need a mover and
we will
seconder.
need yes, and if we don't, we will need a material planning consideration. Councillor Richards.
I'm happy to propose that we accept officer recommendation that planning permission is refused due to the.
I don't think you can do this. I've just been proposed, seconded.
Yes, but
Yes, but okay. You need to find a material reason, and with respect to Councillor Morris, the fact that this development would potentially give more employment than not for something else is not, according to the officers, a planning consideration.
So Councillor Rosehill has said that he's proposing that we consider it as employment use. So therefore we're going with the policy according to what Councillor Rosehill has suggested. Is that a valid planning argument would be my question.
I'm not disagreeing with you, members, but I am merely trying to support your argument that you potentially wish to not agree with the recommendation.
Sorry, if I
Can we sorry to interrupt you. Ladies and gentlemen, can we, thank you, can we hear from the officer, please?
Just go.
I'm trying to help you. If you wish to refuse this, I'm trying to help you find a material reason.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Rosehill's point. Yes, it is an employment generating use. I think every business will generate some form of employment, so there's no argument on that. But it's not an appropriate employment use in this protected employment area. I think that's the key thing to remember. I mean, I think any business would have an employee, would be employment generating. So we're not arguing that, but it's not an appropriate use in this area. That's the key in this situation.
Yes, Councillor Sussman.
Can we do it because we feel that the benefits outweigh the harm in this instance?
I will check. Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Sorry.
One moment.
I think, well, what was the question? Sorry, I need to know.
Does the benefit can we have the benefit outweighs the harm?
Well, in a balanced judgment, in theory, yes. But I think the point here is if members go against the officer recommendation, that's a departure from the development plan, because we're going with what the policy says. And there is no marketing evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that there's a requirement for this. There is a need. If they had employment, so if they had marketed it for whatever period of time that was deemed suitable and shown that there's no interest, then yes, perhaps we could go down that route. But with no evidence whatsoever put forward to us, it's very difficult to go down that route.
Yeah, I'd like to argue
Yes,
that
Councillor Rosehill.
the use class and its impact on employment is a material planning consideration. So because the medical unit uses generate employment, it is a valid material planning consideration. And I think I'm being stopped in saying it again in another planning meeting in determining an application with different rules each time.
I'm not stopping you. I'm merely trying to help.
Chair, a way around this
material-
impasse would be to actually vote on the original proposition, because if that
Yes, okay.
passes, then the other one is irrelevant. They don't need a reason because it'll be proved irrelevant. My suggestion only.
Okay, we will go with the original that...
Someone needs to put motion in.
Madam Chair, the way I read it is there was a motion that was proposed to refuse, to go against the officer's recommendation, and that was seconded, but we're still waiting for that planning reason as to why that's happening.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying.
And it's down to us as members to come up with something that's acceptable to our planning officers.
Excuse me. I would argue that we had this issue with Lidl on Elstree Way, where it was deemed not an employment use. We said it was an employment use and granted permission. So I don't understand how something is material then, but it's not material now.
Okay, so we had someone propose to refuse, and we've had someone second. Yes?
Is it council?
No. We had somebody second, and your reason is, Councillor Rosehill, sorry, just to be clear?
The reason that Councillor Morris proposed, which was that it is employment use and therefore policy compliant and should be accepted.
Even though officers don't think it's policy compliant. Okay. Okay, we can go to the vote then.
So just to clarify, Councillor Morris, you have recommended, you've gone for the recommendation to go against the officer recommendation and approve the application on the grounds of employment. And then Councillor Rosehill, you've seconded that. Is that clear? Okay, thank you. I just want to check that. Okay, so members, that was a recommendation. So the recommendation is to approve the application against the officer recommendation. If I can take the vote, so for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alexander. To approve the application.
Do you want to approve it, or...?
It's
yes,
for,
I'm voting to approve the application.
So is that for?
Yeah, for, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen?
With a heavy heart, against.
Councillor Gray?
Against.
Councillor Handley?
Against.
Councillor Kazar?
Against.
Councillor Lambert?
For.
Councillor Morris?
For.
Councillor Quilty?
For.
Councillor Richards?
Against.
Councillor Rosehill?
For.
Councillor Smith?
Against.
Councillor Sussman?
For.
Councillor Green?
Against.
That hasn't passed, is 7 against that recommendation. So an alternative recommendation must be put forward.
So, yes, Councillor Gray?
Yeah, thank you. I propose that I propose the motion that we accept the officer's recommendation to refuse this planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richards, do you second? Thank you
I
very
second
much. We can go to the vote.
Thank you. So the recommendation is as set out in the report to refuse the application. If I can take members' votes. Councillor Alexander?
Against.
Councillor Allen,
For.
Councillor Gray,
For.
Councillor Handley,
For.
Councillor Kazar,
4.
Councillor Lambert,
I'm against the application, against the recommendation. I'm not sure I entirely understood what we're voting on.
you're voting for what?
Do you agree with what the officers have said?
I'm against it.
Thank you. Councillor Morris,
Against.
Councillor Quilty. Thank you. Councillor Richards,
4.
Councillor Rosehill,
Against?
Councillor Smith,
4.
Councillor Sussman,
Against.
Councillor Green,
4.
that's 7, 4. So that recommendation has been carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does everyone want a 5-minute break? Or shall we carry on? Okay. We'll go on to 5B. Sorry, did you want me to say something? Can you hear me now? Are we televising this? Are we televised at the moment? Are we live now? Okay. Thank you very much. We are waiting for members of the committee to come back, and then we will begin the presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and apologies for the technical difficulty. We will now go on to 5B, which is 25/0542/REM, Charleston Paddock, St Albans Road, South Mims, and I invite Georgia O'Brien to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to Charleston Paddocks on St Albans Road in South Mims at the South Mims Services. This is the red line location plan showing the existing site, which has a residential dwelling in the left-hand bottom corner here. The rest of the site is just open grassland. It's not in any active use currently. And this is an aerial view of the site, which is located to the southeast corner, adjacent to the M25, and it falls within the designated area of the South Mims Services. This is a photo of the existing site entrance located on St Albans Road, It's currently blocked off from public access by these two vehicular access gates. These are some photos of the existing buildings within the site. There are some outbuildings, garages, stables, which are no longer in use for stabling animals, but just sort of general storage. And these are some photos showing the field, sort of that occupies the majority of the site. There is a pylon within the site, as you can see here, with overhead cables. And this is a view of the Ramada Hotel, as you can see glimpses of it through the tree line facing north. So the description of development is reserve matters application for access, layout, scale, appearance and landscaping for B8 uses, including infrastructure, servicing, landscaping and associated works. And this follows on from the outline approval reference number set out here. To briefly touch on the difference between an outline and a reserve matters application, so essentially one follows the other. So the outline permission is submitted first, and this is described by the PPG as an application for outline permission allows for a decision on the general principles of how a site can be developed. It is granted subject to conditions requiring the subsequent approval of one or more reserve matters. So following the grant of outline permission, we then would receive the reserve matters application, and reserve matters are those aspects of a proposed development which an applicant can choose not to submit details of with the outline application. They are reserved for later determination, and these include access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So in this case, the outline consent was purely the principle of development. It did not include any reserve matters, so all of those matters were reserved for determination under this application. The outline consent came before the Planning Committee on the 15th of August 2024, and it was granted subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement on the 21st of March 2025. And that consent was subject to Condition 1, as set out here. Application for approval of the first reserve matters application shall be made to the local planning authority before the expiration of 18 months from the date of the permission, which was the 21st of March. So the reserve matters application now before you has been received within the required timeframe. This is the approved parameters plan as part of the outline. The description of development was site clearance and demolition of the existing structures and redevelopment to B8 warehousing and distribution use. This use was up to 11,500 square metres with a maximum building height of 18.5 metres and a specified finished floor level. The outline consent fully dealt with the principles of development, including the loss of the existing dwelling and conflict with the SADM 25, the Greenbelt assessment, landscape impacts, transport impacts, flood risk and BNG. That was all dealt with and consented by the existing outline permission. The proposed site plan now before you for the reserved matters is shown here. This is one of the options that was presented to officers as a sort of illustrative plan of how the development could come forward at outline stage. So this has already been reviewed by officers as part of the outline. Just to show you here how that site plan overlays with the approved parameters, you can see that the building is located within the shaded orange area, which was the maximum area of built form that we consented. It's actually a bit smaller than what we consented. There's no built form within the no build area shown in grey here. And the remainder of the site around the building and the hard standing is landscaping and amenity space, which is also consented, in addition to this purple line, which denotes the retained public right-of-way, which is also shown on the site plan. And the two access points, as consented by the outline, are also proposed in that required location. This is the proposed ground floor plan showing the warehouse floor. The entrance for the office workers will be on the ground floor level here to the north of the building, and the service yard is here to the south. You can see all the loading bays. This is the core plan showing the reception area, the stairwell and lift core, and the locker changing room and shower facilities, which are intended for staff members to use when cycling to work. This is the proposed first floor plan. Because of the height of the warehouse internally, much of this is retained as warehouse space, but there would be a first floor open plan office space, again with a core here above the reception, which I've got a detailed plan of here for you. There's a small kitchenette and the required toilets and the lift core. And then the second floor level is only occupied by the plant and equipment for servicing the building. So these will not be on the roof. This is the proposed roof plan. These little boxes denote the solar panels which are required as part of the building's sustainability credentials. So these are the proposed front and side elevations. This elevation is, as you would see it, facing south, standing in the car park. So this is the entrance on the corner there to the reception and office. This elevation here is fronting onto the amenity space. So this is looking westward. This elevation here is fronting onto St Albans Road, so you've got the corner glazing to the reception area, and then all of these windows serving the open plan office space. And then this bottom one is the rear elevation, so those windows for the office wrap around the corner of the building, and you've got all of the loading bays onto the service yard. These are some proposed site sections to give you an appreciation of the context of the building height. This section in particular shows the vegetation area, which will wrap around the side of the building to the amenity space, the existing wash lane common planting, which falls outside of the red line and will not be altered, and the Mimsall Brook and then wash lane common separated from the development by those trees. So the car and cycle parking provision, this is just a detailed look at the employee car park to the north of the site. This is an elevation of the cycle store. There are a number of cycle stores proposed. These are just shown here. And this is what they look like in practice in situ. A total of 96 car parking spaces are proposed, and that includes 5 disabled spaces, 20% active EV charging and 80% passive EV charging. That's in line with a condition that was attached to the outline consent. So when looking at the 2014 parking standards, those parking standards would require 279 spaces for this development. But this parking standards is well out of date by now and incompatible with the modern sustainability and active travel aspirations. So we would look at the 2022 standards, which would require 159 spaces for a B8 development of this scale. So there is still a parking shortfall compared with the 2022 standards. But as set out in the report, the applicant submitted a transport compliance statement. They did carry out an accumulation study at outline stage, and this showed that the expected occupation of their car park would be approximately 47 vehicles at any one time. So the proposed car park could accommodate their staffing requirements. They have also proposed a total of 40 secure cycle parking spaces, which is far in excess of what's required by the 2022 standards. And as mentioned previously, they've also got the showering and changing facilities to really encourage employees to use cycling as a means of accessing the site. The outline Section 106 agreement also secured a shuttle bus plan. So we've received a framework shuttle bus plan with the reserve matters application. Essentially, the end user of the site is required to implement an electric vehicle shuttle bus for the purposes of employees accessing the site. So once the end user is known, they then need to submit to us the final version of that plan, which will show the route, the stops, and it will be custom built to the employees' requirements and where they're commuting in from. So these measures taken together were considered by officers to mitigate that shortfall in car parking. This is a detailed plan of the service yard. There is some overspill car parking for employees down here to the south. There is a designated parking space there for the shuttle bus and the HGV loading areas and some parking for the HGVs as well. This is the electricity pylon. We are required to leave a certain amount of buffer for maintenance access, and that's shown there in the keep clear area for that maintenance. So as mentioned previously, the principle of development is entirely dealt with by the outline planning permission. The site is in the Greenbelt, and the outline permission did determine that very special circumstances were present in that case, and hence the permission was granted. So the reserve matters we're assessing now: access, which includes vehicles, cycles and pedestrians, the layout of buildings, routes and open spaces, scale, so the dimensions of those buildings, the appearance, external appearance of buildings, materials, colour and texture, and the hard and soft landscaping as well. So turning first to the access. As mentioned previously, there are 2 access points, and this was agreed in principle by the outline consent to segregate the employee traffic from the HGV traffic. There is a pedestrian path proposed along St Albans Road just to connect these 2 up, and that will also connect up to a path which links into the retained public right-of-way. So that terminates here and then links up into the public right-of-way, which goes then along this line and goes onto Wash Lane, or alternatively underneath the M25 to head south. That's all been secured as part of the reserve matters in line with the outline, and is entirely compliant with the parameters. We did consult Highways. They initially raised an objection in regards to the width of the retained public right-of-way. Initially, they wanted to widen this to accommodate cycle traffic. However, this path is a designated footpath. It doesn't permit cycle use. The consented scheme in the Section 106 agreement doesn't propose to upgrade that footpath to a cycle path. So there's no basis to require the applicant to widen it any further. So on that basis, HCC then withdrew that objection, but they did request that the path is not finished in gravel because it was deemed an unsuitable material. So that has been amended. The applicant has proposed a suitable material for that path now. Highways have also accepted, as part of the outline consent, all of the capacity matters. So HCC Highways and National Highways, there's extensive consultation with them at outline stage in relation to the local and national highway networks, traffic movements, HGV movements. It was all dealt with under the outline consent ultimately, and the mitigation we secured at outline stage was sufficient. So there's no additional harm to the highway network arising based on what's in front of us. The layout, the site layout, as mentioned, is entirely consistent with the parameters. This is proposing 11,161 square metres, which is within the consented maximum amount. The site access points, again, consistent with the parameters. The green space is proposed to be secured, and I'll show you the landscaping plans shortly. We've got the active frontage onto St Albans Road, which is considered to be positive, and there were no objections from our urban designer, subject to a very small amendment that was made to the car parking area to remove conflict with the vehicular access gates. That was amended as part of the assessment, as I mentioned as well. No objection from HCC Highways in terms of conflict with traffic, highway safety. So the accesses are suitable and in a suitable location. In terms of scale, the building would reach the maximum height parameter that was consented at 18.5 metres. That's consistent with the outline approval. The finished floor level is also consistent with the outline approval. Notwithstanding the consented parameters, the scale of the development is considered by officers to be appropriate within its location, and the development will not be visually incongruous with its setting within the South Mim services. This is assisted much by the appearance of the building. So a contemporary design approach has been taken to help to break up the visual massing and add some interest to the elevations. Large-scale glazing is proposed to the corner of the building to aid in legibility, to help people easily find the entrance to the building in the office space. The glazing and the louvres at the first floor level not only indicate the office space, but also provide active fronting and then some screening to the office windows, shading in the summertime. The dark grey cladding at the ground floor level creates a visual base for the building, and then this graduates to lighter colours, which helps to blend the building in longer views into its background, and to kind of soften the appearance of the scale of the building. And the green palette has been chosen to pay homage to the green belt to the east of the site. In terms of the Fencing, there is a degree of security required for these types of developments, but the applicant has opted for this type of visually permeable green fencing, which is considered to be visually appropriate in this case. So the soft landscaping proposed, these two plans, the one on the left shows tree planting with each of these dots indicating a different species of tree. And then this plan on the right shows the different areas of soft landscaping. So a total of 79 new trees are proposed, including a fruit orchard down here in the corner. Each of these coloured areas denote variously shrub and grassland planting, wildflower grassland and amenity planting, and native hedgerow is also proposed around the edges of the building and the hard standing as well. In terms of the hard landscaping, again, these materials are considered to be appropriate. So this section of the site is an amenity area as well as SUDs. So the applicant has created a network of paths just to make this actually usable for employees. There's a bench area to the north here where people will be able to sit outside on their breaks. And a variety of different materials are proposed. Tarmac would be used for the primary road only in the car parking area here. The service yard would be finished in concrete, as shown here, and then the paths would be a mixture of gravel and block paving. So to conclude, the proposed details do comply with the consented outline parameters. There's no material harm to the character and appearance of the area based on the design details that have been put before us. There's no harm to neighbouring amenity. There's a high quality landscaping scheme to be secured, and there are no objections on highway safety grounds. Officers consider that the car parking shortfall has been adequately mitigated for, and therefore we recommend that we approve the reserve matters subject to the listed conditions. And I'll just finish with some visuals to give you an understanding of what the site sort of aspires to achieve and the landscaping once matured with an aerial view of the development. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a speaker. So can I call Mr. Lyndon Gill to speak for the application? Thank you. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I registered to speak this evening as this is an important application to my client. We welcomed members' decision to support the outline application earlier this year. We have progressed with the discharge of planning conditions, have ensured that occupier requirements are factored into this design, tendered for the detailed design, and we are here this evening to show our commitment to progressing this development and bringing employment opportunities forward on this site. However, as we are entirely consistent with the approved outline application that has been submitted and approved, and given there is no objection this evening, we will simply sum up to confirm support for your officer recommendation and to take time to thank Georgia for her input on this application and the previously granted outline application. Should members have any queries, we are here to answer them if it would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Officers, do you have any comments before I ask? No. Members, do you have any questions? Yes, Councillor Smith.
Can I just clarify on one of the graphics that you showed the toilets that have been required to be put in? I didn't see a disabled facility. I just saw regular toilets. You've just missed it.
There is a disabled toilet and shower on the ground floor. In terms of the office space, this one?
It's there in the middle, right in the middle.
This one, there it is.
Yeah, beg your
in
pardon.
The middle.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
I couldn't see it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lambert.
We had a sort of roof plan with quite a lot of solar panels on it, but they finished. Did they get fed up with drawing them, or is that the extent of the panels, please?
Yeah, so that is the extent of the solar panels proposed. The applicant has put as many panels as they need on the site to meet their sustainability requirements. So they do need to achieve a BREEAM outstanding. and that's a very, very high level of sustainability. It puts the building in the top 1% of buildings in the country for that level of sustainability. This was the number of panels needed to achieve that, so that's where they've left it.
Councillor Sussman?
Thank you, Chair. This sits in my ward. My only comment again was the roof, because it would just be nice if, rather than they did just what they need, if they might be minded at least to finish that row. And possibly, is there any scope for using the rest of the roof as a green roof or something? Is that something we could suggest to match their bus stops?
In terms of the green roof, I don't believe it's something that's possible to achieve on a building of this nature. The roof is curved, as you can see there. I don't believe it's something that they could reasonably achieve from sort of an engineering perspective. Whether or not they could add more solar panels, it's something that we could request, I assume.
Sorry, if I can just butt in there. On the solar panels, it would be nice at least to have them looking uniform on the top. But I wonder with the solar farm applications, if there isn't scope for them to sort of utilise the roof as a bit of a solar farm.
We could add an informative to the grant of permission to ask the applicant to explore additional solar panels. It was something that we were looking at separately under the discharge of conditions application for their sustainability. So that's something, a discussion that we've been having separately. So we could explore that further.
Thank you. Sorry, and just finally, as this green belt's been lost anyway, I don't personally see anything wrong with this application. That we decided at that time it was in a sensible location, etc. And as and when the time is right, I'd like to move this to agree with the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have anything else to add? Councillor Morris?
So I was just piping up. I'm happy to second when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Yes, Councillor Richards.
Just coming from the sustainability angle, I think being in the top 1% is pretty really good, in fact. So that's really pleasing to see. And I think the issue might be around battery storage. If there were more panels, I'm not.
Oh, we've had those applications as well.
Yeah. So you can put all the solar panels you want, but without battery storage, might not necessarily be energy that's used.
Thank you. So shall we vote then? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the recommendation is as set out in the report, subject to conditions. Can I take the vote? Councillor Alexander?
4.
Councillor Allen?
4.
Councillor Gray?
4.
Councillor Handley?
4.
Councillor Kazar?
4.
Councillor Lambert?
4.
Councillor Morris?
4.
Councillor Quilty?
4.
Councillor Richards?
4.
Councillor Rosehill?
4.
Councillor Smith?
4.
Councillor Sussman?
4.
Councillor Green?
4.
Thank you, that's unanimous, that's carried.
Thank you. We move on to 5C, which is 25/0987/FUL, Millbrook Open Space, Millbrook Road and Bushy. And I invite Katrina to present when she's ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application before us is at Millbrook Open Space, and it's before committee this evening because it is a council-owned site. So just to give some context, in terms of its location.
Sorry, could I request that you speak more into the microphone? We can't hear you on this side.
Thank you. Yes,
Sorry.
I agree. You're very faint.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So the application before us is at Millbrook Open Space. It's before committee because it's a council-owned site. The proposal is for the creation of a children's play area, and just to give some context in terms of its location, I've just provided some aerial plans. The application site comprises an area within Millbrook Open Space located towards the northern part of Millbrook Road, Bushy, with access to it also from Bushy Mill Lane and via an access taken from Friars Way. The application site is a large open green space with the surrounding area being predominantly residential in character, with local services located in close proximity along Bushy Mill Lane. Just some images of views through the site as existing. Top left taken from Millbrook Road, looking west towards Bushy Mill Lane. Top right taken from the northern side of Forest Walk, adjacent to the block of flats. And you can see that there's an 11-a-side football goal present. Bottom left taken from Bushy Mill Lane, adjacent to the parade of shops, looking east towards Millbrook Road. And then bottom right taken from the corner of Bushy Mill Lane and Forest Walk, looking northeast into the site, where you can also see there's a Beryl bike sharing station present. So as stated, the proposal is for the creation of a children's play area. The proposal seeks to enhance the existing provision, directly addressing an identified local need for an accessible children's recreational space. A footpath link would also connect to the existing public footpath, which surrounds the open space, and the proposal seeks to retain existing trees and enhance the landscaping. Just some proposed visualizations of the location of the play area to the southern end, the southwest end. And just to state that the red line outline demarks the land in the council's ownership, with the white dash line outlining a 30-metre parameter distance from residential properties to the northeast, south and south, demonstrating that the play area siting has been considered in terms of residential amenity. And then you can also see the clusters of trees to the south offering some screening. And the circles around these trees are just identifying the tree protection zones. Here's just some visualizations of what the play area would be incorporated with in terms of equipment. At the technical planning meeting, it was brought up whether I could identify some of the inclusive play equipment. So I've added in this slide. But just to say, whilst it's not possible to specifically define or capture all elements of inclusive play, given the wide interpretation of inclusivity and the fact that equipment can be accessible to some children but not others, the proposed scheme has nonetheless been designed to provide a reasonable level of inclusive provision. The play area would incorporate a wheelchair-accessible carousel, a ground-level jumper, and a disability-supported swing seat, thereby offering play opportunities for children with a range of abilities. In addition, the whole play area would be finished with a rubber wet pour safety surface, which provides a softer impact absorbing ground treatment that reduces the risk of injury should children fall, along with a linking footpath to the existing highway network. So just to provide another visual of a section through the site, and this section actually identifies that none of the equipment would exceed a height of about 3.5 meters. So the key considerations of the application were the principle of development, character and appearance, residential amenity, parking, access and highway safety, and the natural environment. With regards to the assessment, in terms of the principle of development, as detailed at section 7.3 of the officer report, the MPPF at chapter 8 seeks to encourage the planning system to facilitate social interaction and help create healthy, inclusive and safe communities, highlighting the importance of delivering safe and accessible green infrastructure, including opportunities for play, sport and recreation, requiring planning decisions to ensure sufficient access to a network of open spaces and facilities for all ages. Policies CS18, CS19 and CS22 of the core strategy and SADM 32 and SADM 34 of the site allocations and development management policies also concur with this. The proposal would comprise the introduction of new recreational facilities and play that would not exceed 4 metres in height, which is what the elevation depicted. And the proposal would not be considered to alter the existing use of the site owing to its open space and recreational designation. Alongside the application, supporting information has been detailed by the applicant, highlighting that in Bushy there is a current deficit of 95% in play provision, with 1 hectare out of the required 20 hectare provided, and the nearest play area to the open space being Park Avenue play area, which is approximately 1 kilometres away. Consultation was held by the applicant, which engaged with over 100 responses being received. The proposed play area would enhance the existing provision, directly addressing an identified local need for accessible children's recreational space, which would not detract from the existing open amenity space, as the new play area would be set into the existing open amenity, demarcated by a green 1 metre fenced enclosure and positioned to the southwestern corner of the site closest to Bushy Mill Lane. The new play area would retain its existing trees and landscaping, in addition to a degree of spatial and visual openness maintained owing to its siting, scale, nature, and nature of development. Therefore, officers consider that the proposal would be acceptable in principle. With regards to the impact on the character and appearance assessment, there were no concerns found. The proposed children's play area would introduce new built features into the site in the form of play equipment and associated safety surfacing, amounting to an approximate play area of 316 metres squared of the overall 5,500 metres square site area, which is a site coverage of 5.5%. The scale and design of the equipment is modest and appropriate to its setting, with a significant amount of parkland remaining open and undeveloped. The proposal would comprise the introduction of new recreational facilities and play that would not exceed 4 metres in height, as stated. The proposal would not detract from the existing open amenity space, as the new children's play area would be... just to touch on the equipment. The equipment would be constructed from materials and colours selected to complement the surrounding landscape, in this case farm-themed, and supplementary boundary treatments would assist in softening the visual presence of the scheme. While the proposal would inevitably alter the appearance of part of the southwestern corner of the site, the change is considered acceptable given its localised nature, sympathetic design and strong alignment with local and national policy. The scheme would also reinforce the function of Millbrook Open Space as a multifunctional and inclusive community facility designed to integrate rather than dominate its environment. And on balance, the play area would not result in harm to the character and appearance of the site or its surroundings. Instead, it would represent an enhancement to the recreational value of the open space. In terms of the natural environment, the council's ecologist raised no objections, subject to a condition to ensure the protection of existing trees on the site, none of which were TPO'd during the construction phase of the development. The application site includes 30 number individual trees. The application was supported by a tree survey, tree constraints plan, tree protection plan, an arboricultural impact assessment and a biodiversity statement. The proposal would provide 10% mandatory biodiversity net gain achieved by delivering an on-site net gain of 1.45 habitat units alongside an associated monitoring fee to allow adequate monitoring over the 30-year period and enable the local planning authority to discharge its duties under Schedule 7A of the Town and Country Planning Act. This has been controlled through condition and discussed at section 7.76 of the officer report. As the land is council owned, the financial contribution for monitoring will be secured and ring-fenced through internal council financial mechanisms rather than a Section 106 agreement. The applicant is therefore expected to arrange transfer of the monitoring fee to the appropriate council department, in this case Hertsmere Borough Council's Planning Department and HCC's Ecology, before commencement of the development. So just to show the considerations, just as outlined and discussed before, and then just leading on to residential amenity. The proposed play area would be bounded on 3 sides by residential properties. The objection raised by the architectural liaison officer, that's the police crime officer, has since been retracted following further consideration. They are now in support of the scheme as per the update sheet. At section 5.4 of the officer's report, third-party comments were surmised and objections and support contributions were 50-50, with 25 contributors received. The dwellings surrounding the site are separated from the proposed play area by either a public footpath, grassed verge, or local access road, and areas of unallocated parking. The proposal would be located comfortably at a minimum of 30 metres from the closest residential properties surrounding the site to the west, north and east and south, as shown in the table here. At these distances, officers consider that there would be no loss of light, loss of privacy or overlooking concerns to these dwellings. It is recognised that the installation of play equipment will result in some increase in noise and activity levels, but these are generally of a transitionary nature associated with daytime use and characteristics of open space environments within residential areas. The Council's Environmental Health Officer raised no objection in principle, suggesting a condition for a noise impact assessment. However, as mentioned at section 7.5 of the officer's report, the proposed play area is set far enough from houses that it wouldn't be necessary to require a noise impact assessment, and therefore it is considered that the application of this condition would fail to meet the 6 tests. Normal use of these type of play areas are limited by weather, school times and holiday periods. Whilst the level of current use is unknown, there is nothing to stop this area from being regularly used by people for activities such as football as existing. In this context, it is not considered reasonable or proportionate to require a full technical noise impact assessment. In terms of antisocial behaviour, while the concerns raised are material, it is also relevant that the proposed play area would be located in an open, accessible and well overlooked location. Natural surveillance from nearby dwellings and passing pedestrians would limit the potential for the space to be used covertly. Additionally, the proposed play equipment would be vandal resistant, and per the equipment and surface and material details submitted, with the addition of secure fencing and prevention of access for dogs, and there being seating for caregivers and instructional signage. The design for younger children further reduces its attractiveness as a meeting point for older age groups with very limited shelter to allow for loitering. The benches being provided would be located within the play area with alternative benches within the park as existing for other age groups to use. The proposed play area would not be lit to avoid extended use into late hours of the evening, and the use would command that children are supervised by an adult, likely to be a parent or guardian. Again, the Council's Environmental Health Officer raised no objection regarding concerns owing to antisocial behaviour, stating that there is no certainty that antisocial behaviour will occur, and the location provides a clear line of sight for people in the locality which may act as a deterrent. On balance, and taking into account the nature of the scheme, the degree of separation to the surrounding properties, the open and overlooked nature of the location, and the intended management of the open space, it is considered that the proposal would not give rise to an unacceptable harm to residential amenity of neighbours around the site. In terms of parking, access and highway safety, again, as detailed at section 7.6 of the officer report, Millbrook Open Space is served by 2 through roads, Bushy Mill Lane and Millbrook Road, and 1 no-through road to the rear of the shopping parade along Bushy Mill Lane, access from Friars Way. Both Bushy Mill Lane and inclusive of the slip road and Millbrook Road are unrestricted roads, with only a restriction on Bushy Mill Lane adjacent to the shopping parade between Monday and Saturday 9 till 5, with Bushy Mill Lane also being served by local transport and a bus route. With consideration paid to third-party concerns regarding the potential for the proposed play area to exacerbate existing parking pressures and to result in highway safety issues, officers consider that the proposed scheme has been designed at a modest scale, specifically to serve younger children within the immediate locality. It is therefore anticipated that the majority of users would be drawn from the surrounding residential area, arriving by foot rather than private car. It is also noted that the application site is positioned close to a bus stop and the Beryl bike sharing station. Given this intended catchment and the scale of the facility, it is not considered that the proposal would generate a level of vehicle movement that would materially worsen existing parking conditions or give rise to detrimental highway impacts. The site is also located within a sustainable location, well served by existing public transport, which further supports the expectation that reliance on private car would be limited. The council's highway officer raised no concern. Just to be transparent and to just demonstrate how I assessed that the scheme would be at a minimum distance of 30 metres. I've just shown some images of where the intended play area would be in relation to the residential properties surrounding it. And then just some visualizations further to demonstrate that some of the residential properties bounding the site are set back, have frontages, are separated by the footpaths, are separated by the highway and the unrestricted parking areas as shown in these images. To conclude, the proposed children's play area would provide significant improvements to a key community facility and enhancement to the existing recreational ground and open space for the residents of North Bushy, and would cause no significant harm to the visual amenities of the area or the residential amenities of neighbouring properties, nor impact on highway safety or the natural environment. The proposal therefore complies with national and local policies. To conclude, the Office's recommendation is to grant permission subject to conditions. At the tech meeting, it was asked to provide what the conditions would be, and the conditions are listed above. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Please can I call Mrs. Beverly Pratt to speak for the application? Thank you. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Beverly and I live on Millbrook Road, only a few yards away from the proposed site. I'd like to talk about why I believe a dedicated toddler-friendly park on our local green would be a valuable and meaningful addition to our community. This area of Hertsmere is already short of play spaces, with King George's a good drive away, Park Avenue play area, which is more suited to older children, and a play area for toddlers and young children that local residents can walk to, I believe, will be welcomed by the majority of our local residents. Firstly, I'd like us to consider the youngest members of our community. Toddlers and younger children learn through play. It's how they build motor skills, develop confidence, and begin to form early friendships. A safe, age-appropriate space designed specifically for them means they can explore, climb, slide, and run in an environment that's tailored to their needs, rather than trying to navigate equipment meant for older children, such as the equipment found at the next closest park in Park Avenue. Secondly, it's not just the young people who benefit, families do too. A park creates a natural meeting place for parents, grandparents and carers. It strengthens community bonds by giving us a space to connect, share advice and support one another. In today's busy world, these opportunities to face-to-face connection are more important than ever. This development, planned in the heart of our community, close to our local primary school and walkable from thousands of homes, is a perfect location. Thirdly, having a park on the green enhances the value of the green itself. Right now, the green is already a wonderful open space, but adding a small, well-designed play area would make it more welcoming to young families without taking away from its beauty or openness. With thoughtful design, low fencing and equipment that blends with the environment, the park can complement the green rather than overwhelm it, still leaving plenty of space for picnics, ball games and dog walking. Finally, this, in my opinion, is an investment in the future. Families with young children often look at whether a community has good facilities when deciding where to live. By providing a safe and engaging play area, we are not only improving the quality of life for those who live there now, but we also make our community more attractive to new families, helping the area thrive for years to come. In short, a park isn't just about swings and slides. It's about a nurturing development, building connections, making our green more inclusive and ensuring our community remains vibrant. Thank you for considering this idea. I hope you'll agree that giving toddlers and young children a safe and joyful place to play in our local green is something worth supporting.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I now call Councillor Richards as the community advocate for this application? And you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Many thanks. It's not my intention to use anywhere near that amount of time, by the way. So as local ward councillor, my fellow ward councillor, Louise Nicholas, is unavailable tonight due to a long-standing appointment, and she would have loved to have been here to speak as community advocate, given more notice. And as I speak in strong support of the planning application, which proposes a new children's play area at Millbrook Open Space in North Bushy. As ward councillors, we met officers on site many months ago now to carefully set out the parameters that we deemed, that we thought that would be deemed acceptable. The project is not only a community enhancement, but also fully aligned with both local planning policy and national planning policy framework. While the majority of feedback across the ward has been positive, in fairness, I want to respectfully address the concerns raised by a small number of residents. First, location and proximity to homes. The play area has been carefully sited at the furthest possible point from nearby properties. This ensures minimal disturbance while still making the most of the open space. Secondly, concerns around noise and antisocial behaviour. The facility is specifically designed for younger children, not secondary school age. The equipment and layout reflect that purpose, reducing the likelihood of gatherings that could cause disruption. Thirdly, accessibility and needs. As is already mentioned, the nearest play area is over 1 kilometre away, and the nearest park is 2.5 miles away, King George's. For families without easy transport, that's a real barrier. This proposal brings play opportunities right into the heart of our community. Its aim is to address that 95% deficit in terms of play areas locally. I also wanted to mention its relationship to local school. Millbrook Open Space is close to Highwood Primary School, making it an ideal location for families who already walk in the area. It encourages active travel and outdoor play. Finally, this is about community benefit. This design respects the character of the open space, uses sustainable materials, and ensures accessibility for children of all abilities. It will enhance, not detract from the quality of life in North Bushy. If a play area does not go here in Millbrook Open Space, then there is really no other location in North Bushy. It is just about the most perfect location possible locally. Approving this application means giving our children a safe place to play, supporting family well-being, and strengthening community ties. In summary, this proposal is a modest but meaningful improvement that meets identified local needs, complies with both local and national policy, and delivers long-term benefits for North Bushy residents. I urge the committee to approve this application, and also, just for clarity, as a member of the committee, my understanding is I need to leave the room. While this is, I'm not intending to join the debate and the voting, so I will leave the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Officers, do you have any comments before? No. Councillor Gray and then Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. And I did have quite a lot to say on this application, but I don't think I could do it justice with what we've heard from our lady speaker over there who put it so much more eloquently than I could. I'm really pleased with what you said, and this was always the aim, to actually remember our youngest residents in the borough and provide them with a safe and secure area to explore and play. The only one downside I have to this application, my decision was overruled. I wanted a jungle theme, but unfortunately we ended up with a farmyard theme. But apart from that, it has my full support, and I hope that the children in the area get as maximum use out of it as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morris?
Thank you. Well, I have to say this is a very strong application, very impressed, and if you can't have a children's play area in the middle of a dense residential area, I'm not quite sure where else you'd put it. And at the appropriate time, I'm quite happy to move to approve.
Thank you. Councillor Allen?
Thank you, and thank you, Katrina. This idea has been around for quite a long time now. It was proposed, I think, quite a few years ago, before Paul or I were on this authority. But in the final analysis, I think it has come together really nicely. This is funded by Neighbourhood Cell. It was approved by SILIP about 9 months ago. Not strategic Cell. It's one of the first, I think, the first piece of neighbourhood still for Bushy that's been allocated in this council lifespan. And I think one of the standout points from the council consultation a few months ago was the 95% deficit for play areas in Bushy. And North Bushy is quite distinct geographically from other parts of Bushy, the Park Avenue and Bushy Mill Lane neighbourhood. It is quite a long way away. And when you drive through Boreham Wood or walk through Boreham Wood, almost every pocket of Boreham Wood has a play area on a local green space, and there are 6 parks in Boreham Wood. Bushy doesn't have that. There are 3 parks, but very, very, very few residential play areas. This is something which is commonplace elsewhere in the borough, but not in Bushy, and that's why I think this is so important. As Paul said, there's nowhere else this could go, and it has my full support.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Morris, you were minded to...
I thought there might be a bit more discussion, but I'm more than happy to move to follow the officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gray, second?
I'm more than happy to second.
Thank you very much. Yes, we can go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to grant permission subject to conditions in the report. If I can take the vote. Councillor Alexander?
4.
Councillor Allen?
4.
Councillor Gray?
4.
Councillor Handley?
4.
Councillor Kazar?
4.
Councillor Lambert?
4.
Councillor Morris?
4.
Councillor Quilty? Councillor Rosehill?
4.
Councillor Smith?
4.
Councillor Sussman?
I like the farmyard. 4.
Councillor Green?
4.
That's unanimous. That's been carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to our last application when we have 1 moment. Thank you very much. We move on to 5D, which is 25/1028/FUL 80 to 82 Shenley Road, Boreham Wood. And I invite Holly Holt to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this one's at 80 to 82 Shenley Road. Here is just a location plan and aerial view of the site, just with the site marked in red. Here is just an aerial view looking north. The application site is located to the south of Shenley Road, which is within Boreham Wood Town Centre. The site lies adjacent to Boreham Wood Cinema along Centenary Place, and the nearest bus stop is located just to the west of the site. Here are just some site photos just to show the context, and the arrows indicate where they were taken from. So the application proposes for the change of use of the existing building from a Class E, formerly the NatWest Bank, to an F1 use comprising of a community centre with associated educational functions and ancillary Class E uses. The following additions are also proposed to include a 3-storey rear extension to provide an internal lift access, alterations to materials on the front facade, replacement of all fenestration, new roof terrace at first floor level with a canopy, roof alterations, cycle storage and refuse and recycling facilities, and a 2.4 metre high perimeter fencing. So here are just some visualisations just to show you where the new alterations would be. We would have new detailing on the front facade, all fenestration would be replaced, and a 2.4 metre high perimeter fence and bike and bin storage to the rear. On the rear visualisation, you can see that the plant equipment, the 3-storey rear extension, and the first floor roof terrace. Here are just the proposed floor plans. The key is just on the top left, just to show what everything represents. Just in terms of the history, so the principle of the change of use from Class E to F1 was previously considered acceptable under a previous application. This was determined by the Planning Committee earlier this year in May. The main difference from this application to the previous one is the external alterations. So just in terms of the principle, paragraph 11 of the MPPF sets out plans and decisions should apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development. Community facilities are also strongly supported by our core strategy and site allocation development management plan. Marketing evidence was provided in the previous application to show the Class E use would not be viable for this building, and as such it's considered to meet SAD M42. A retail survey was also provided to show the proposal would not decrease Class E use below 70% along Shenley Road in accordance with SAD M43. The site is also a highly sustainable location within a 1-minute walk from the nearest bus stop and the 5-minute walk from the train station. Therefore, officers consider the principle of the uses are supported in this location. Here is just the Class E frontages. The stars just indicate the existing Class E uses within the immediate area. Just in terms of the other considerations, so in terms of character and appearance, no significant harmful impacts or conflict with the development plan and national policy was identified. The 3-storey rear extension would not breach the 45-degree line, therefore no concerns arose with regards to loss of light or outlook. The roof terrace would be screened by 1.8 metre high fencing, as annotated on the plans. Prior to the use of the terrace, a condition has been imposed to secure screening details. Environmental health have also raised no concerns, subject to conditions, and the opening hours have also been restricted. In terms of car parking, the site is in town centre location, nearby to public transport, and cycle storage has also been provided. HBC highways raised no concerns as well. Finally, just in terms of flood risk, the site is in flood zone 1 and has a low risk of flooding. No concerns were also raised with regards to waste management. Just as a conclusion was to grant permission subject to conditions. I've just listed the conditions out just because it is requested at technical meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We don't have any speakers for this application, so do you have any questions you wish to ask members? Councillor Morris?
It's a very uncomplicated application, and thank you for the clarity in presenting it to us. I can't really see any negatives about the application, and you've presented all aspects. So at the appropriate time, I'm quite happy to move to approve.
Apologies for keeping my microphone on. Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Gray.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And like Councillor Morris, I have no problems with this application at all. It's going to be a fantastic faith-based organisation on the vibrant high street of Boreham Wood, which builds into the tapestry of our town and our borough. I'd like it noted on record, I'd like to thank the Rabbi for being with us this evening and for all the work that you do for our community as a whole, whether you have faith or not. The work you're doing is superb, and I hope you can do more with your new building. I think it's important to stress the the actual community welfare benefits, you know, during COVID and up until today and going forward are hard to measure, but they certainly are acknowledged. I just want that on the record. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Well, this is a win-win all round. We've already approved the principle here, and it's nice to have an evening in this chamber where we can approve lots of nice things that make people happy. This has my full support.
Councillor Kaza.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just to add on all the positivity that's going on in this committee regarding this application. Yeah, I'm broadly supportive about this application. Every time I go past the high street and see the site and see it abandoned, it just breaks my heart. So to have this site being reused for a faith-based building is quite encouraging. Looking at the notes that we have in our packs, neighborhood responses, no one's against it, no one's, and out of the 137 people who have been notified, broadly, there's no negative feedback, let's put it that way. So I'm broadly supportive. And also just bear in mind, just last week when, about 2 weeks back when the committee met in September, we did approve another application in this very location regarding the LED screens. So I think the regeneration of this part of the high street of Borehamwood is quite welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Sussman.
Thank you, Chair. It would be a privilege to second Councillor Morris for this wonderful new building for the new year, and lots of contemplation over the coming 48 hours or so, thinking about this great addition to Borehamwood. Thank you.
I agree. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I very much support this. Colleagues have said it well already, but just to reiterate, this is an incredibly important application, and I'm really pleased to see it here tonight. And, well, I was going to say that I was happy to second when the time comes, but Councillor Sussman beat me to it.
No, I'm very happy that lots of people want to second. That's lovely. Councillor Richards.
Thanks. Yeah, I can't add too much in terms of the community benefits. It's obviously incredibly welcome, but I also wanted to say how brilliant it is to see air source heat pumps as part of the application and making the building far more sustainable than it's ever been. Thank you.
Shalom. Indeed. So, Councillor Morris?
I'm more than happy, in fact, thrilled to move to approve this application.
Thank you. And Councillor Sussman will second. Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Let's vote.
Thank you. So the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions as set out in the report. So if I can take the vote, please. Councillor Allen?
4.
Councillor Gray?
4.
Councillor Handley?
4.
Councillor Kazar?
4.
Councillor Lambert?
4.
Councillor Morris?
4.
Councillor Quilty? 4. Councillor Richards?
4.
Councillor Rosehill?
4.
Councillor Smith?
4.
Councillor Sussman?
4.
Councillor Alexander?
4.
Councillor Green?
4.
That's unanimous. That's been carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. So item 6 is planning appeals. Does everyone have the current list of planning appeals? Jolly good. Item 7 is any other business. No, item 7, yes, is any other business the Chair considers urgent, which there is not. Item 8 is the date of the next meeting, which is the 23rd of October. Thank you very much, and I close the meeting at 8:30.